Hey, everybody, it is your host for Retail Agentic, Scott Wingo. It is January 11th, 2026. NRF is well underway, and today, Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google, took the stage for the first time on the NRF main stage and had the incoming CEO of Walmart as well. And they are announcing a lot of stuff. So I wanted to get out the news as quickly as possible on every format because this is a big deal. Google is doing what I call a shock and awe initiative at NRF. I've been in this business for 30 years. I've never seen anything like what we are seeing right now. It's crazy. NRF was kind of the sleepy show where you talked about checkout systems and cash registers and point of sale and the conveyor belts for self checkout at grocery stores. And now it has become an agentic commerce show. It's the craziest thing ever. I would never have guessed this in a million years. What I'm going to do is there's a lot of news dropping. There's a Substack that goes into this if you want to read about it. I have a presentation I've put together here that's also available in the Substack for your reference. And in the Substack, I wasn't able to go into some of the other news from Shopify and then picking up the Stripe, Microsoft, PayPal news. So let's go through that. That's a lot to cover. I will go ahead and apologize. This was put together super fast, so we don't have our normal intro and all the fancy editing you have. So this one's going to be live without a net. So Google has announced 5 big things here today. The one we probably care most about are number 1 and 2, and that is the Universal Commerce Protocol. So I'll get into that and what that is. If that sounds familiar, it's one letter off from ACP, and I think that's intentional. There's an entirely new checkout system. This is great because their previous Buy For Me system had a lot of flaws, and it looks like they've addressed most of those. Most exciting to me, I'm a data feed nerd because that's product catalog and data feed is, I believe, the crux of this whole thing. There is an expanded product catalog feed coming out. There's the least amount of details on this, somewhat frustratingly for a lot of you, I'm sure. But as per usual, we're going to be watching this very closely, and we already have a bunch of questions into Google and some meetings set up to go learn more. There is a new ad unit, which I think is interesting. I'm thinking of it as an agentic commerce ad unit. We're going to see a lot of innovation in this area, kind of the marrying of retail media networks and everything we learned there about ways to blend e-commerce and ads with agentic commerce. And finally, there's this interesting business agent that I want to pick up as well. Now, there's big buckets of things Google's done. We're going to focus on the ones that are consumer facing. There's a lot more that if you want to, if you're a retailer or brand and you want to pull agentic technology into your company and use it on your website or even your back office, there's a lot of stuff for that. I'll hit the highlights of that as well. But for now, we're going to really focus on these 5 consumer facing things. First of all, the big news is Universal Commerce Protocol has been released. And you can see over how they think about this. On the left-hand side, you have a bunch of consumer surfaces. And this is places where consumers can interact with agentic commerce. In their world, that is Google AI Mode or Core Search or Gemini. Then over on the right, they have backends. And this is where retail backend is, where it's going to need order management and inventory management and those types of things. Then in the middle here are 6 capabilities: product discovery, cart, identity linking, checkout, order, and other vertical capabilities. I know some of you are on audio, so I'm going to describe this a little bit. That's basically 6 little round cornered rectangles. And then 3 of them are solid outlined and 3 are dotted line outlined. And that basically is the solid ones are here today as part of today's announcement. Now, this is not live yet that I can find. I suspect it's going to take a day or 2. So we'll be posting a live demo when this is ready, when we can find it out in the wild. Same for Copilot checkout. So the 3 that aren't out yet are product discovery, cart, and other vertical capabilities. Now, the other thing that's interesting is underneath those rectangles, you have 3 longer button-shaped kind of rectangles as well with very rounded edges. You have APIs. These are underlying communication protocols. This enables you to basically have your UCP checkout talk to other systems. So there's APIs, which is just you can talk to anything, MCP, and agent-to-agent protocol. So Google had this I imagine this replaces AP2, which was their previous protocol. So AP2 has now been replaced by UCP upgraded, let's think of it. And then they've added compatibility, and they don't explicitly say it here, But what's interesting is someone should be able to very easily, they've gone not only the last mile, but everything but the last inch. Someone needs to come out and build the last inch between UCP and ACP, and I bet there's going to be 50 companies that do that. So I don't think we're going to have a shortage of that. And they have built a universal protocol that will talk to. So in theory, a retailer could work with this protocol and get everything. Now, I've got a little drop of skepticism. I think everyone's so frenetic about this. There's a lot more announcing than doing right now. So it's Google, and I think they will deliver this. The question is when and how reliable will it be? So we'll be keeping an eye on that. As everyone does in this world, they announced a huge set of partners here. So there's tons of people that are joining the fray, and you can kind of see here what that looks like. Here, I'll move myself over here so you can see that better. The ones I'll note, I actually have a slide on this. So the usual suspects would be Shopify and PayPal. So Shopify and PayPal are basically in everything at this point. They're definitely planted the flag on we're going to be a partner with everybody and be what we would call agnostic. And then you have Etsy and Wayfair. They tend to be the first retailers. So they're retailers that I am mentally calling the ones leaning in very, very heavily on this. Chewy I would put in that bucket as well. Then, interestingly, you have Target here. Now, Target is aligned with ChatGPT because they did the whole app. That's kind of how Target decided to do this. Target is deciding to align over here. Also noticeably missing is Walmart. So maybe that's going to be announced live or something, but I think it's really interesting that they're sharing the stage, but Walmart hasn't committed to this protocol. And maybe there's something in their OpenAI relationship that keeps them from doing that. The other thing is our world has a lot of large PSPs, and those are payment service providers. And what a lot of people don't understand about our industry is if you're a big retailer or even a brand, you get very locked into your PSP. You've got a lot of history with them. You've built lots of workflow and infrastructure, and your whole financial org is built and approves that one PSP. So one of the things I think OpenAI got wrong is or ChatGPT with ACP is they basically kind of said, yeah, we're partnered with Stripe. You can bring your own PSP, but there was no Rails built to make that connect. Now, the PSPs are building that pretty frenetically, and I do think maybe if they build it for this, it will work for that. That's another part we need to see more details to understand. But here you've got WorldPay, Adyen, and a bunch of these other really big PSPs, which is interesting. You also notice Stripe's on here. So they're another one that is playing on both sides of the fence. There's a lot of retailers here. So we've also got the two beauty guys, Sephora and Ulta. So that's exciting to see. Also the payment companies. So you've got MasterCard, Visa, and Amex on here. And then one of the infrastructure companies, Commerce, also known as Big Commerce, is on here as well. So here's what it looks like. Let's kind of go through this. So this should look relatively familiar for you. I'm through the discovery process. I'm at a SKU I like, and now I have a buy button. So you can see I'm looking at a Monos carry-on suitcase. I see a buy button. I click that buy button. I can review my order. Today, this only works with Google Pay. So I see my GPay mark there. This is, I didn't say this explicitly, but just like ACP, UCP is merchant of record. So Monos is their PSP, who I don't know who that is, but that is the cash register that will ring. It'll actually go through Google Pay. Now, and you can see here, it's branded up at the top, Monos. It says Pay Monos, and then it says Pay with GPay. The one big difference I would say is, and if you read the T's and C's, it talks all about this is Monos's return policy and stuff. The one difference I think is on ACP on instant checkout, it basically said Pay Monos instead of Pay with GPay, but I think Google wants that branding there. And then over on the right-hand side, I have a screenshot that says it's an order completion screen. So it shows the credit underlying card that was used with the wallet Google Pay and all the information. And it says again, your order has been confirmed and you've ordered from Monos, and it gives you an order ID. Later, when tracking is, there is a little order checking area of this checkout system. So when the order ships and you have tracking information that can be uploaded so the consumer can be in Gemini and see that. Now, presumably there'll be somewhere in Gemini you can go see your orders. That exists today. It's kind of hard to find with the buy for me, but I think they'll elevate that over time. Being a super e-commerce nerd, the part I'm most excited about is the expanded product catalog feed. And I mentioned there's not a lot of details. Let's go through what we have. I'm excited about this. You may have seen I did a presentation kind of talking about getting really deep into ACP. And the thing that's most exciting about instant checkout for me is what we realized is in this new world of LLMs or AI-based technology, we've had 20 years of optimizing for keywords and 4 or 5 bullets in product detail pages. And that's the exact opposite from what these engines need. Because they use natural language to build out this massive graph, they actually want an explosion of content. And then on top of that content, they want context. So an example of those two things is, let's use a bike pedal. Let's say you sell auto bike parts. There's probably basic ways to talk about a bike pedal, but a bike pedal, surprisingly, everything that we sell online could probably have 50 to 100 attributes. And it's for that person that is, really into that product. And they want to know exactly about how the threads work on that thing, how many reflectors it has, everything you can imagine about that product. That's content. Context is, should you use this bike pedal for mountain biking, street riding, hybrid? Will it work on these models? What's its compatibility? Those are contextual clues, and it always builds on the content. So these things are yin and yang. And the way I view it is the old Google feed, which our industry just is like semi-standard on, in this new world is basically a ratchet dirt road. It's like got grass growing up, and I've got that pictured here if you can't see. What we need today is a 30-lane super highway of information. We need like a fiber optic cable versus a dial-up modem. There's a million analogies I could go into. By building their Agentic Commerce solution on the old Google feed spec, Google is setting themselves up to fail on discovery. They will not have enough content or context to give Gemini what it needs to help you find what you're looking for. So what they've said they're going to add to, and they haven't said this either, but I'm assuming this is going to be basically an expansion of the Google Shopping feed spec. Let's call it 2.0 or AC for Agentic Commerce. And over on the right, I found 2 graphics on this. So there's they're going to add descriptive text attributes and product details, such as product specifications, a Q&A list for other data feed nerds. That's actually one of the big parts of the instant checkout spec. Is Q&A and then also reviews, feature lists, shapes, flavors, and themes. And then, so those are attributes. With the Q&A can be contextual, and then compatibility information. This is where Google's starting to get it. This is the context part I'm talking about. They want to know all the accessories, spare parts, and substitutes. They're going to add dozens. And if I kind of put my corporate speak on that, that's somewhere between 24 and 60 new attributes. It could be higher, but I don't. 60 feels like an upper bound to me. I can assure you, whatever comes out today, let's call it 2.0, there will be a 3.0 where that expands, okay? Because everyone's going to learn that this is the key to this, and they're kind of coming up the curve. They say you deliver it through the Merchant Center, and that's how you deliver your Google Shopping feed. So I don't think they've named this thing. I think it'll land on Google Shopping feed, AC, or whatever it's going to be called, some little suffix, and you'll just upload it to the Merchant Center. And then there's a couple more examples. I think I may have had, no. That the Q&A, recommended accessories, substitutes, content specs, shapes, flavors, and themes, surfaces. Okay, so all the same information. I'm excited. I want more information. And I think you should have, my advice to every brand and retailer is you should be focusing on blowing out your product level content and context, because that is going to give you the edge in this world. That's going to be how you own this version of the buy box. It's going to actually be a product card buy box, but there you go. There is a new ad unit. Now, this is exciting. I'll talk about some of the predictions I've made, because I made a prediction that we're going to see a Cambrian explosion of innovation around ad units that are tied to Agentic Commerce. And this is one. Now, sadly, I think Google's going to be surprised they don't get a lot of uptake on this one, because it's a discount, and they kind of casually in their demo say, let's say a retailer, and what happens is someone's in the funnel, so they're out researching. When they get to what I think research find by, when they get to find, and they've narrowed it down to a SKU or two. You, the merchant, if someone's looking at your SKU, you can decide to make an offer, and their AI will. It could actually be highly personalized. I think today it won't be, but this is what's exciting about AI, because we can finally get to this one-to-one advertising kind of mechanism. We just got to find the right mix of ad unit that the retailer likes and the consumer. That's going to take a while. I think it'll take like 20 shots on goal. But what this one does is it injects an offer, and they always kind of say 20% would be great. And I'm like, most of the folks I know, that would just destroy all their margins. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of 20% off. Down the road, you could also see this being tied. You could almost see a complex set of rules almost that say, is this a loyalty customer? Is this a this? Are they going to buy from a competitor? There's a lot of is this a first-time customer for me? I think you'll be able to have a much richer set of criteria on what you offer when, or even what ad you serve to somebody. But this is what we have today, and it's a good starting point. Now, what I like about this is it's very clearly, an ad unit for the consumer. So it's a sponsored deal. So this is a sponsored deal is what we're going to call this. And, it's clearly coming from the merchant. I like that too. And it brings up the merchants. It also, it's on there already, the ratings for this merchant, but it shows their ratings, and it also highlights the if there's a store nearby, and the delivery and return policy for this store. The other thing that's kind of cool, and again, I want to kind of see this live to kind of be able to really judge it, because there's a lot of ways that this could go awry. But they've given you the ability to train an agent, but it lives on Google. Okay, so it lives on Gemini or AI mode. So this is not an agent that lives on your site. So here's an example. This is their example, not me. So they picked Lowe's, not the grocer, but the home improvement store. And Lowe's on Google has a little merchant center. And anytime you see a Lowe's listing, you can click in there and go into the merchant center. Number one, we happen to know in my world that not a lot of people do that. They don't go to Google and then like filter by Lowe's. It's just like not a thing. But anyway, they kind of stay in the multi-merchant discovery phase. But let's say they could actually juice that. So we'll give them the benefit of the doubt there. Then on there, you see the aggregation of just their inventory that's in the system from the data feed. And then you can actually shop Lowe's, and there's a chat. And then what's interesting is it uses your inventory, and you can ask questions about that. But you, the merchant, can actually provide it a lot more data. So there's a way to get more data into a builder for this. And this business agent builder, I guess they didn't have a name for this. Everything has a studio, so we'll call it Builder Agent Studio. And then you could, let's say, and then you can see what people are asking. So this could actually be pretty interesting. And then they also have a flavor of this from the Google Cloud folks that will go on your site. So different names, and I think architectures, but somewhat similar things that you can see what's going on inside of here, which I think is pretty interesting. There were a bunch of other announcements, so let's go through this quick. This is not in our world, but I'm an e-commerce nerd, and I love this idea of drone delivery. I think it's just fascinating. So Google has a subsidiary. Alphabet is what Google's parents company is. Alphabet has a sub called Wing, W-I-N-G, not Wingo. They missed one letter on that one. And it's their drone, and I'll show you what that looks like. And they're expanding that with Walmart. And then within their cloud compute group, which we'll just call Google Cloud, they came out with this really big Mac Daddy, which is Gemini Enterprise for CX. So this is to help retailers with their customer experience. There's a studio that goes along with that. And then there's a couple other little things that are really more for support folks. And then they dropped a bunch of case studies we won't go into. You can review those on your own. HomeDepot, Papa John's, Honeyell, which is a device for stores, Authentic Brands, and Gap. So this is what the Wing looks like. It's capable of, it can go, I think, 12 to 20 miles, 60 miles an hour. It can carry a relatively large package. I forget how heavy. Underneath it has a little tether type droppy system, and we call that a payload in drone world. Not the explosive kind, but the product kind. And it does a vertical takeoff. It's like a Harrier. It can do vertical takeoff and horizontal. So it hovers. You can see it has 12, I think, propellers for vertical and 4 for horizontal. I think the verticals can somehow contribute to horizontal. I don't know exactly how that works. And then it can pick up a product using the tether and then take off. And what we see here is what it looks like in a Walmart parking lot. There's these QR code-like things, which are the landing pads. They land on there. I think it has charging on top of that, and then it charges and takes off and picks up packages from this location. They're going to expand this to 150 Walmart stores this year, 2026. That will bring it to metros including Los Angeles, Miami, St. Louis, Cincinnati, Houston, Orlando, Tampa, and the closest one to me is Charlotte. And that will give them access to 40 million homes. So you can tell they're trying to get they're in scale mode. And when Google gets in scale mode and Walmart, it's basically how many millions of households. How do we get to 300 million households as quickly as possible? And if you're going to partner with someone, Walmart is the way to do it. They have a shopping agent. So this is one from Google Cloud, which is what you can put onto your site. So you can take there's a whole studio for building this, and you can put this on your site. It has multimodal interactions. It basically uses Gemini and packages it with a retail database, retrieval log generation, probably underneath the hood, to give it a database for your products and your policies and procedures and your training and whatnot that you would give a customer service rep, and it can be an on-site agent for you. I do believe they power either the Home Depot or the Lowe's one. I can't remember, and it may be both because they talk about both companies a lot. So this would be like if you want to build your own Sparky or Rufus type situation. They have a whole studio for building this, which is pretty cool. So you can actually go build it in a sandbox, deploy it, and then you can like simulate questions to it, and you can actually run it in this safe environment. You could even have people in your company test it and see if they like it or not, and then deploy it to your site. So that's pretty cool. It has a lot of other features. You can look inside of there and see what's going on. You can score every customer. You can have it self-score every conversations it's having and say, I think I did a terrible job. And then you can just sort and say, I want to look at the bad ones first to see what to fix. And then you can go and search through all the different conversations it's having. Now, they didn't explicitly say this capability is for the consumer-facing one, but I imagine that at some point they'll consolidate these things, I have to imagine. And then these are for training your own reps. So if you have human reps, you can train them. There's a coach and then a trainer kind of mechanism. The coach it kind of sits in the background and watches your customer service reps answer questions, and then injects itself and says, don't say that to the customer. We don't curse to customers, or whatever it is that you want to say. And then there's a trainer. Let's say you hire a batch of 100 new reps. It walks them through a bunch of training by simulating conversations and scoring them. A lot of the stuff we used to do manually in the old world, or I'm sure there's whole SaaS companies that do this that are probably now going to be out of business. The other thing I want to pick up since I have you is, the Copilot checkout was announced, seems like forever ago, but really only, let's see, it's the 11th, 3 days ago. So the Thursday before this big Google announcement, Microsoft, Stripe, and PayPal and Shopify snuck this in where they have upgraded the Copilot checkout. This is what it looks like on the right. You have two folks you can check out with, two systems, PayPal and Stripe. Shopify is also in the mix, as they always like to be. This is built on ACP. So it's interesting. We're starting to see these two battlegrounds form, the UCP side and the ACP side, and I've got a graphic for that. The launch retailers here are Etsy, Urban Outfitter, Anthropologie, and Ashley Furniture. I have not found any of those live yet. This is what PayPal shared it will look like. Again, it's very clear that Ashley is the merchant of record here. So same here. This is a made-up company. This Gustav company is not real, or Contoso is a fake company that Microsoft apparently has used for decades on demos. Here they're selling some kind of a lamp. I'm in the discovery process. I see a buy button. So just like we're used to now, this one looks the most like instant checkout because it shares kind of a common heritage with ACP. I go through that. Pay Contoso is very clearly marked here. I have, in this example, I'm just paying with a credit card. It processes that, and you have an order confirmation screen and a place you can see your orders. And when the delivery tracking is available, it will be uploaded to that area. Okay. I talked about there's these two worlds, actually kind of three forming. Let's look at what this looks like. Okay, so here's the lines drawn. So the big one is you have ACP versus UCP. Those are the two big battles going on. Then you have this little sidebar conversation. Over on the ACP side, we have now two checkouts built on that with distribution. So we've got ChatGPT Instant Checkout and Copilot Checkout. Stripe is the underlying technology partner for both of those, but it does enable you to pull in third-party payment mechanisms. PayPal plugs into that thing. Other PSPs can come into that. Shopify is trying to bring their merchants to that whole world. Then today we just had announced Google and Gemini. That sits on the Google Pay rails, so Stripe's not in the picture for powering it, but they are connected in through the connector, the UCP connector. And then you've got Shopify, Google Pay, and PayPal involved there as well. So those four companies are Stripe, Shopify, Google Pay. Google Pay is available in ChatGPT, which I think is the really interesting. There's one crossover going from the Google side over to the ChatGPT side, but there's not any ChatGPT side going over. It will be interesting to see, does ChatGPT connect their network to UCP? Or is this going to be like an open, everyone plays well under the hood? I don't think that's how it's going to go. And then over on the right, you have Perplexity, who kind of just lashed their ship to PayPal, and they're built on the PayPal rails, and that's called Instant Buy. So I don't know what those PayPal rails are. They're not ACP or UCP. At some point, I imagine PayPal may pick one or come out with their third. Maybe it'll be PCP, and that'll be like PayPal Commerce Protocol. I don't know. That's probably a bad acronym. Also, Shopify has a lot of announcements at NRF, and because they're kind of the we're contributing partner. A lot of this is not news, but I think it is interesting to see their messaging. So I just wanted to share this briefly. Okay, so they announced that they're partnered with Copilot Checkout. We knew that they co-developed the UCP with Google. So they're kind of trying to take almost like a creditor, a founder credit here. I don't know what's going on with that. And then they've announced these stores are going to be pretty early on from their network of millions of merchants on UCP. Monos, who we saw, the luggage company, Gymshark, Everlane, Keen Shoes, Pura Vida, which is a jewelry company, and Kite Baby. Imagine that's a baby brand. They're going to be some of their launch partners. And then they have this new agentic plan, and this is not exactly clear, but they're basically saying, hey, even if you don't want to run your store on Shopify, we'll help you sell on all these places. I'm a little skeptical by that. We'll kind of have to see what that looks like. I'm not sure anyone would. I think if you're on any platform at all, you're going to go with what that platform provides or a third party that is like optimized for this, because Shopify's number one priority is always going to be running stores. They have their own diagram of what they think UCP looks like, and it's very similar to what we just saw, but on the right, it talks about how it connects into the Shopify different components, essentially, that they have. And then they showed that in the Shopify console, and I imagine this is not the plus part of Shopify, it's the standard Shopify store. They've tried to make it so easy, you just have 3 checkboxes. Now, for some folks, if you have like 5 SKUs, that may be the case. But again, I'm a little skeptical. They always had an eBay and Amazon connector, and that never really worked out well for folks, because it's not just a checkbox. If you're serious about these things, you're going to have to spend a fair amount of time. Like imagine each of these is going to have 10 different ad units you're going to want to manage. You're going to need to go to the source and manage what you're doing. But it is a good way to get started, and it is, kudos to them for being smart to be on top of this. I think, I'm not an expert on this, the companies in this world, but Magento is owned by Adobe, and I haven't really seen much out from them about how they're catching up. WooCommerce is kind of like at this SMB tier, and the enterprise guys are all tracking pretty closely the Salesforce Commerce Cloud and stuff, and BigCommerce, of course, and which is more at parity with Shopify Plus. So it's going to be interesting to watch how the agentic commerce wars spill over into the store world. I don't think we're going to really need much around stores. And I think what's going to happen, this is a little bonus for you guys listening and watching, there's some really interesting companies that are trying to build the next generation of Shopify, but from a pure agent basis. And I think that could be really interesting. So instead of, look at this settings page. I think it actually scrolls for like 5 more pages. What happens in SaaS is it just becomes overwhelming on the user interface. What if you just had a bunch of agents running your store and you could just chat with them, and you could say, hey, spin me up a dashboard that shows this, do that, and you could basically tell it what to do. Maybe there would be some buttons. You could actually have it create the user interface you want. You may never have gone to, maybe you don't use point of sale. Maybe you don't use 80% of Shopify. The definition of these big systems is you only use like 10%. Well, your experience could be just the 10% you need. So I think there's going to be this new generation of shopping platforms, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this part of the world. All right, this is where I take a little tiny victory lap. So it's already early, so we're only basically 11 days into the new year, and I put myself out there. This is something I'm kind of comfortable with because I do it a lot. And I said, here's some of my predictions for 2026, and I put 11 with a bonus, and I'm excited to say we've checked off 2.5 of those already. So number 3, I thought there's going to be a cross agentic checkout payment protocol, and we have that now with UCP. Came out way faster than I thought it would. And then number 6, I thought we would see Perplexity and PayPal update their stuff. And then, Google Agentic. I should have checked Google Agentic 2.0. This error on my part. And then explosion of Agentic Commerce ads. So I think we're going to have 10. So I gave myself partial credit on that. I didn't want to do 1/10 because that wouldn't fit on the slide. The other one I got right is I forgot to put this in a prediction. I probably should have. Then I would have had 13, and that would have been unlucky. So there you go. So this one seemed like it was somewhat obvious, so I didn't really put it on there, but it was obvious. And now we do have Copilot, so we can check the box that this was my future state. Those two are true, and then I think we will have an upgrade to Perplexity and PayPal. I think ChatGPT will move over to advanced buy, so they'll move over to multi-cart. I should have mentioned when Google talked about in their checkout, they put the dotted line around cart. I think they're signaling we're going to get there as fast as we can. So it's going to be a race to get to advanced buy this year. We could actually see Google Gemini get there because the amount of resources they're pouring into this. We'll wait and see. That could be where I missed something. It will actually leapfrog by 1 step. It'll get to level 4. I think Google Gemini now has probably an 80% probability of that. So if I were to redo my predictions today, I would change that. Anthropic and Claude, nothing. They are at NRF. I'm going to be digging into. I'm going to put on my investigative reporter hat, try to figure out what the heck they're up to, and then I think Grok and XAI will come and do something, and so will Meta. This is a summary of my predictions. Thank you very much. I will be posting a lot of content on LinkedIn, and then occasional. I'm going to try to do 1 or 2 quick pods, just kind of like man on the street kind of things to give you an idea what the vibe is at NRF if you weren't able to go. Those will most likely have a video component, so you may want to watch for those on our YouTube channel. This is a great time to remind you, subscribe to all our content. You can subscribe to the Substack at RetailGentic. You can find our YouTube channel there by clicking in the upper right podcast, or if you want to subscribe to the audio on your favorite audio podcast listening device, Apple is probably the most popular, but Spotify is way up there and others. Give us a subscription. We would love that. And it helps us understand where it is you're consuming content so we can make sure we target it. All we do is talk about agentic commerce. So if you like this topic, we're your source. Thanks, everybody. Have a great NRF. I'll be back with more content, and it's already 2026 is already off to a crazy start for agentic commerce. Happy agentic commercing.